You are now listening to the fastest show on iSports Radio. My name is Darryl Kinsey Jr. Welcoming you taking a lap extra mile for today, June 18th, 2024. Of course, I've got my co-hosts with me, Jenn B, Christopher Lehman, Michael Ward. Say hello.
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 And we are ready to get things rolling in this episode. Today, we're going to review Pocono, and if you've seen the title of this episode, you kind of know what one of the big stories are going to be. We're also going to talk about the Iowa IndyCar race, upcoming race in Toronto, get into some Formula One where things are getting very spicy as we get to start the second half of this season. But of course, we've got to do some business before we get into that information. Of course, follow us on X, IG, Facebook, and TikTok at IE Sports Radio. Also, we are available on Apple Podcasts, Spreaker, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, and everywhere you can hear great podcasts just like this. And if you want more information on this show, head over to iesportsradio.com/the extra mile. And before we go in, if you want to find out more about the network, check out iesportsradio.com and buy some nice merchandise at iesportsradio.com/shop, and make sure to follow us on Twitter at extra mile IESR. I refuse to call it X. Now, we're going to take a quick ad break to pay our bills with Planet Jerky, premium brisket beef jerky, the jerky that's on a whole nother planet, and Seal the Deal wax seals. So listen to their messages. We'll be back on the other side of this break.
IE Sports Radio fans, this show is brought to you by Planet Jerky Premium Brisket Beef Jerky. Planet Jerky is the official jerky of the 2022 California League champion Lake Elsinore Storm, Single A affiliate of the San Diego Padres. This all brisket jerky has gluten-free options, contains no MSG, no sodium nitrate, is low in sugar, and high in protein. Go to their website at planetjerky.net and follow them on Instagram at Planet Jerky. Planet Jerky, the jerky that's on a whole other planet.
Hey there, IE Sports Radio fans. Be sure to check out our sponsor, Seal the Deal Wax Seals by Cecilia B. You just finished your very own wedding or baby shower invitations and you're looking for that extra special touch? Maybe you just wrote a letter to a relative or a friend and you want to add to their smile when they receive it. Then seal the deal with Cecilia's handmade sealing wax stamps for your invitations, letters, and gifts. You bring the deal, we'll bring the seal. You can find them on Instagram at sealthedeal_wax stamps and on Facebook, Seal the Deal Wax Seals.
And we're back here at Extra Mile on iSports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. Darryl, Jen, Chris, and Michael here with you. The gang is all here. Let's talk some racing, everybody. We'll start first with the NHRA this time. Just to give a quick update as they're about to race in the Northwest Nats, and John Force Racing will be back together partially with Brittany Force coming back onto the circuit this weekend. However, John Force's funny car will still be at the shop. They are discussing plans to bring that car back out to the racetrack at some point with another driver. But guys, about a month later, it hits different when your boss is also your dad. And my one question, put yourself in Brittany's shoes. How do you get on with the business of driving a race car really fast after what happened the last time you were at the racetrack?
I don't know. I mean, it's a little different. I mean, there's a few examples, you think of like Dale Jr. And you just do it because you were born to do it. First off, you have to have mentally prepared for that type of situation to happen. It's the inherent risk of going fast. And I think there's a little trepidation, but at the end of the day, you just get in and do what you've always done, and you just got to be confident in yourself and your abilities.
Yeah, Michael, we've seen it a lot with major accidents and folks coming back from them, is especially in the motorsport we watch. Talked about it in the early days of this program. This is probably the one sport, maybe the NFL after what we saw with Damar Hamlin. This is the one sport where week in and week out, death is a real possibility coming out there.
It is a real possibility, and there are always safety advancements that go into these sports, but it's always a fierce reality, and when you go out there, you kind of make that acceptance, I want to say, that things can go wrong. You could get hurt, maybe worse. And I think that's what a lot of these drivers are going out here today, especially after that incident, thinking, yes, it happened, but I got to go out here and I got to do what I know to do and go out here and try to win the race.
And the thing with that, of course, with Brittany missing a couple of rounds of racing, is she's dropped down the order in the standings. She's down to 10th now in the race for the playoffs. So she's in that 10th and final transfer spot. So she's going to have some work to do. Going to have to go rounds this weekend to get back up the order. But I think the main thing on Friday, just getting back in the car and getting comfortable. The other big news coming into this weekend is, can Gage Herrera be stopped? 11 straight finals he has won, smashed the NHRA record for most consecutive finals won. His bike, it is inevitable. That's why I titled this segment, Gage is Inevitable. They just have the tune-up right now. And Chris, it's much like what Max Verstappen did last year. You get a combination and you are absolutely unstoppable.
Yeah, you definitely need that, a combination of equipment performance and driver performance. And when you have man and machine working together in just such harmony, it's unstoppable, and it's something that you just need to enjoy while it's happening, because it's kind of a generational thing to have something like that. Just the perfection involved. So it's really fun. It sucks if that combination is somebody you're not a fan of. But if you are a fan, like the flag behind me obviously shows, it makes for a really wonderful time.
Yeah, if you're a Matt Smith fan, you are in pain every week where Pro Stock Motorcycle is there, because it's like, oh, he's gonna get the win this week, Gage. It's like, oh, Matt Smith is the number one. He's the number one qualifier, lol, Gage. It's like in the NFL at this point. You can have the best team ever, and you go into the Super Bowl, Lowell Mahomes.
Yeah, I think a lot of us have that moment, like in sports, where it's just like, oh man, this driver's gonna win up low. Somebody else wins. The dominant driver wins.
Yeah, and Jen, at this point, I'm pretty sure if he wins this week, they're gonna take that bike apart in post-race tech to the individual frame rails to make sure that thing is legal. It's wild. It really is.
Yeah.
You're just going to see that thing at Victory Lane. It's just going to be in pieces because the officials are just
I don't even
taking
think
it
they're
apart.
going to wait for it to get to Victory Lane. They're just going to
just start taking it apart as it gets to the finish line.
Yeah,
like,
it comes across the
finish. Go celebrate, but we gotta take the bike. I'm sorry.
Yeah, we're gonna need to borrow this real quick. You'll get it back. It's not gonna be a one piece, but you'll get it back. So salute to all of the pro stock motorcycle riders this weekend. You guys have your work cut out for you. And if someone beats Gage this week, Gage Herrera in the finals or in final eliminations this weekend, you might as well celebrate like you won the whole event because you basically did. For the record, where is he in points right now?
I like how all the sports kind of have this one driver. It's like, can anybody beat him?
No.
Right now.
I think NASCAR is the only one that doesn't at this point.
Yeah, I think NASCAR doesn't, but every other sport, it has this one driver that's like, can anybody beat this guy? Please, I'm begging you.
Yeah, for the record, Gage Herrera is up by 271 points
is that
on
all?
Matt Smith going into this weekend. Yeah, it's such a tight points battle. It can really go it can really go either way at this point. Yeah. Honestly, if you're going to Vegas to bet, or actually you really don't, you just can go on a various sports app, which I'm not going to read because I'm not going to tell you because they're not sponsoring us yet. If you want to go onto one of those, put some money down on Gage Herrera. You're probably going to make a little bit of cash. So let's go ahead and get into NASCAR now, and we'll talk a little bit about the race at Pocono this weekend. That was the Great American Getaway 400 presented by visitpa.com. Put a couple more words in that name, why don't you? Ryan Blaney, at the site of his first career win, picks up his second win at Pocono, leads 44 laps on the day, and in a race that was really between him and Denny Hamlin, it came down to the stage cautions, where I believe it was at the end of stage 1. Hamlin sat for a little bit, took some extra fuel. Blaney got out in front of him, and that was really the moment that the race swung into Blaney's favor. He was able to fight his way to the front, and Ryan Blaney gets his second win of the season.
And congratulations to him. Also, one thing I gotta say is it's really crazy how calm this race was compared to the race we had the week before.
Yeah, the week before was like chaos incarnate, and then this week it's pretty chill for a Pocono race. Yeah, except for a notable incident we're going to get to later. But Jen, this was really one of those Pocono races where the strategy, it felt like a Formula One race where the calls in the pits really mattered because the fact that the track is so big that you can pit without losing a lap. So folks got creative, I'll say, with the fuel strategy, and it created a pretty fun time.
Yeah, the cautions early on in all 3 sets did not help, or did help. I was watching the highlights because I wasn't home this weekend, so I wasn't able to watch the race live. But I was like, I'm watching, I'm like, caution, the race just started, and then the second section starts, another caution, third section, another caution. I was like, well, they're consistent.
Yeah. consistently getting caution. I mean, at least it wasn't like the one truck race, the one year that I actually went to a NASCAR race and did some media for, and like I think they ran in the first 10 laps, all of them were like under caution because they went down into turn number 1 and like wrecked 8 trucks. So sometimes it's weird. Pocono can either be the most wreck fest 2.5 mile not named Daytona, or can be pretty meh, depending on what race it is. This was in the middle. This is pretty exciting. We had some good strategy calls, good fights for the end, or good fights down to the end. And then someone decided on a restart, hey, I'm going to get some revenge and turn a guy for no reason. Of course, I'm talking about Corey LaJoie, as he took Kyle Busch completely out on a restart. Kyle went to throw a block, and apparently Corey didn't like it. Hooked a right, turned him right in front of the field, took out 5 or 6 other cars. For their effort, the Spire Motorsports guys tried really hard to get Corey suspended by saying that, quote unquote, Kyle got what he deserved, but NASCAR decided to take no further action. Oh, come on! Yeah, that's what I thought. But I'm just going to start with Chris on this one. Are we done with the Corey LaJoie is a lovable underdog story? Can we be done with that now? Chris, you're muted.
Yep, I'm sorry, I was typing.
You're good.
Yeah. I've been done with the Corey LaJoie as a lovable mid-pack guy. I just think that, I mean, I think he deserves a shot, like we talked about last week with Rodney Childers. But as far as like, you know, personality, character-wise, I've never really been a big fan of him. Mostly because I haven't, you know, invested time into him. But I don't know. It just seems like he's around, you know, at least the source of some questionable things sometimes, more often than most people that run in similar positions to him. So yeah, I mean, I'm good with saying that, you know, kind of like I don't want to say lovable loser, but if the shoe fits, you know, I'm ready to move past that.
Yeah, Jen, it feels like both of those drivers, Carson Hocevar, who got into it with Todd Gilliland during this race, you know, they were having a knockdown drag out for 25th place at one point, and Hocevar got into Gilliland. Both of those drivers seem to have the same problem. They can't keep their bumpers off of everybody else.
I have never been a fan of drivers that feel the need to take out other cars to get ahead, especially when you're back that far, because what are you really accomplishing? What's the point?
Look, you got to get that sponsor objective for 24, so you can get the extra money. Wait, this is a NASCAR Heat 5. Like, come on, man. I just, some folks just don't think when they're out there. And I love Carson Hocevar, okay? I don't want to hate on the kid. I thought he was good in trucks, but he had a couple of moments where you go, what are you doing, bud? And he had another one of those this weekend. Thankfully, it didn't cost him any issues. But unfortunately, Corey LaJoie, you know, piles up Kyle Busch and a bunch of other cars. And I see Crypto run us down there. He said he needs to go to a race one day. Hasn't been following since the days of Michael Schumacher, Dale Earnhardt. That was a while ago. Yeah, Crypto, if you keep listening to this show, you'll be able to catch up on what's going on out there. So keep listening weekly, and we will get you up to date on what's going on as best we can. So we'll keep with this, which is and I think Chris mentioned it, Rodney Childers is going over there. Spire is trying to be serious. Next year, if Corey LaJoie doesn't show you something, you have got to make a move with that car and put somebody else in it. They're trying to be a serious racing organization. You're not going to do it with a guy that loses his head and wrecks somebody while racing for the 20s. You're just not going to do it. So he's got to get there. And if he doesn't, you got to switch him out. That's all I can say. And everybody's going to have a chance this weekend to do something really cool as we are back to the Brickyard. Finally, back on the Indianapolis Oval. I'm sorry, I never agreed with the road course decision. If we're not going to race on the Oval, why are we there? Let's go around the horn as I see it. Start with Michael and go all the way around. What is your excitement level for this week?
I'm very excited. The reason why I'm very excited is because I've always wanted to know how these cars are going to run on the Brickyard. Mm-hmm. I don't think we've ever been able to, see it. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if there's ever. You okay, Chris?
Yeah, sorry. I know I'm making funny faces. I'm doing something and it just doesn't really make sense.
Gotcha. But yeah, I'm really excited to see how these cars run on the racetrack because, like I said, we never saw them run before, and like I said, it's just that excitement of how are they going to race on that track,
I think it's going to be the most exciting turn one, lap one in quite some time. Chris, what's your energy level for this week?
As high as everybody else is here. Very excited for it. Similar to you, I was not a fan of changing it in the first place. So I'm happy to see it return back to the Brickyard.
And Jen, we're finally back at the Brickyard. What's your excitement level?
I am excited. I am looking forward to watching the race and seeing how everybody does. It was the Brickyard back when I used to pay attention. When Jeff Gordon was still driving. So I am excited to see it back.
The best part about this week and not having is that no one really has a notebook right now on what is going on with the oval with these cars. So that first 50-minute practice they're going to get on Friday is a lot of people are going to be doing a lot of learning, and we're going to learn real quick what this race is going to look like. I think it's going to be a little bit more exciting because with how long these straightaways are, they're going to be able to draft a lot faster. Or it's not faster. They're going to be able to actually draft up to each other and kind of slingshot and make some passes like they weren't in with previous cars that they're going to be able to make with this car. And a lot of people have been like downplaying how this race could be. I really think we are in for a memorable Brickyard 400. And I would say who's your early gauge for a winner, but I really couldn't tell you who I think will win this one. It's been a while since we've seen them on the oval, and I think, Michael, this could be a race where you could see a surprise winner just with all of the unknowns this week.
I'm inclined to agree with you. I think there might be a very surprise winner here today. I think somebody's going to take advantage of how much these teams don't really remember and how different the cars are going to react to this track and maybe steal one.
Mm-hmm. Well, if you're a Jeff Gordon fan, you remember a driver that stole one, and you know that your driver should have 6 Brickyard 400s, not 5. Thanks, Ryan Newman. or not Ryan Newman, Paul Menard. Still not over it, but it is what it is. Someone could try to stretch the fuel mileage here, depending on how the stages go. And I think you could have a battle with the Brickyard.
I was muted. My apologies. If you want to talk about drivers backing into wins, look no further than number 48.
Look, it's not his fault that the dominant JGR cars that week decided to absolutely destroy each other and then just unleash chaos on the last Brickyard race on the oval for a while. You know, he did back into that one, but just
I'm still trying to figure out why they were racing that hard that day.
I don't know. Like Truex and Hamlin took each other out, and everyone's like, "Oh, now we can win!" Just absolute destruction. And I'll always remember they're going 3 wide down the back stretch. Casey Kane is blowing up, trying to hold on in what would be his last race. And Jimmy Johnson's on the outside. I don't remember who was on the inside. The sun is going down, so we're racing darkness. It was just pure chaos at its best when it comes to NASCAR. And I'm hoping we get something like that this week. Maybe not as crazy when it comes to wrecks, but a great finish would do a lot to announce our return to the oval, to the true Brickyard 400. It's going to be very exciting. And as we get ready to go to break, we're going to talk about IndyCar. But before we do that, I do want to pass along some sad news that during the Hydroplane Racing League event in Valleyfield this weekend, our last weekend, unfortunately, H350 driver Francois Leroux tragically lost his life during a wreck in the Connie in one of the Connies before the final of that race. I wanted to pass that information along. It's been a heavy loss for the hydroplane racing community, and we're going to take a moment of silence as we go into break. Be right back.
What's happening, sports fans? Are you a fan of Southern California sports? Are you looking for a show hotter than a hot summer day in California? Then look no further than the SoCal Supreme Sports Show, where I talk about all things Southern California sports. That's right, all sports teams from Southern California. From the hard-hitting tackles of the NFL, to the killer crossovers and big three-pointers of the NBA and WNBA, to the grand slams of the MLB, to the bone-chilling goals of the NHL, and to the booming kicks of the MLS. The SoCal Supreme Sports Show has it all for you. Oh, and let us not forget about the college sports as well. So join me, Taryn Rodriguez, every week here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Are you a fan of Buffalo sports? Are you thinking of changing loyalties and becoming a Buffalo sports fan? Do you even know where Buffalo is on the map? Did you know Canada is closer to Buffalo than New York City? Welcome to the Buffalo Huddle, every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time,
and 4 p.m. Pacific Coast Time on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. I'm your host, Patty Bax. This is a podcast designed for you, the passionate sports fan. I know you love your sports. Who doesn't? I cover Buffalo sports and so much more by bringing in the human elements. I call it Buffalo Sports with a Twist. Join me as we take a journey into the world of Buffalo sports. I guarantee you'll fall in love with Buffalo just like I did. Each week we start with an inspiration, question of the day, a Buffalo fun fact, and a weekly challenge to you, the listener. Come huddle up with me every Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and 4 p.m. Pacific Coast Time for the Buffalo Huddle with Patty Bax on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. As we say in Buffalo, go Bills!
On the Extra Mile here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. The gang's all here. Let's get into some IndyCar racing with what happened at Iowa with the Hy-Vee race weekend. And the Hy-Vee one-step 250 that was raced on Saturday was on Sunday, was won by Will Power. Saturday's race, the home front 250, was won by Scott McLaughlin. A Penske sweep of the Iowa race weekend. And guys, Penske Racing, when it comes to the ovals, they got some really strong drivers. And with a lot of ovals coming to the end of this season, it's going to be put their drivers in a good position to place, at this point, unfortunately, play spoiler for the championship instead of competing for it after that heavy penalty they were received after St. Petersburg.
Anybody? I guess I'll just say it. Yeah, it's going to take some time for them to definitely get back into groove after that penalty.
Mm-hmm. And the fun thing about that penalty is Joseph Newgarden has been feeling it all season long. He went from second to about 12th in the points. I think he's just getting back in the top 9 now. So It has been a struggle. But, hey, Iowa was a good one for them to get back, at least for that team. Unfortunately, the hybrids, first time on an oval, had some issues with the energy recovery system, which mainly affected Scott Dixon. That team is surprisingly struggling with the new engines, but these are the teething problems we expect. And of course, you have some of the boo birds coming out, with Ed Carpenter surprisingly making some comments that the hybrid engines should just be scrapped for this year and try again next year, which to my answer would be this: when do you think these problems are going to go away?
I think go ahead. I'm sorry.
Because you're having teething issues right now. You push it to 2025, those teething issues are still going to be there. You're just going to have 6 less months to work on it. So would you rather work on it now when the problems are minor, or go all the way back to the engines that you were using and lose 6 months of development time? I know what I would want to do, but apparently Ed just wants to waste money. But hey, that's his choice, you know?
I think the best thing to do with a new system is just to keep working at it, and just figure out a solution. Now, I know that sounds like just beating your head against the wall until you figure it out, but this is motorsports, and also it's the future. Hybrid, it's what everybody kind of needs right now. So I think it would be best just to continue figuring out the system, working around it. And, this is what engineers are for. They're here to solve problems and keep working at it until they figure it out. So I think the best thing to do is to keep, using the new system, keep figuring it out. And, hopefully the next year, everything's all better.
Always Arizona Sports with the check-in. Sup, everybody? Hope you're having a good show. We're having a great show. Thank you guys so much for joining us here this evening. 148 of you guys watching tonight. Thank y'all so much for joining us here on StreamYard. And make sure to come back next week and check out all the other great shows on IE Sports Radio as well.
And for everybody on Twitter, you can comment and get a word in with us here if you just go down on the bottom of the screen there. We'll get some banners up here on the bottom of the screen and get some interaction with you guys. We'd love to hear from you.
And I will say this when it comes to comes to the development of new cars. The same thing goes with the next gen car. The next gen that they run in year 10 will not be the same next gen that they run this year. If you allow the teams to run this car for a while, they will learn so much about how to actually make it tick and actually make things work. We are trying to improve short track racing over there, and something that I forgot to get to, but we'll get to it after this when it comes to the tires. But there's a lot of work going on that's going to make these engines better. And in year 2, the engines will be better than what they were this year. And in year 3, they're going to be even better than what they were this year. We've got to allow the work to be done and to get to that better product. And I see Jen shaking her head.
Yes.
Shaking her head, yes, or nodding her head, excuse me. She tends to agree. You got to put the work in if you're going to make these engines good.
Right. You can't get the bugs out if you don't run them.
Right. So it's going to be, you got to allow time for the engineers to do their work. Colton Herta's engineers need to do some work. Actually, not Colton Herta. We'll get to him in a minute. Alexander Rossi. The strategy team for Alexander Rossi, come to the front of the class because we need to talk. Why is this man at the end of every IndyCar race having to save fuel? And not just having to save fuel, having to heavy save fuel. I do not get it. It happened at the Indy 500 when he pitted with everybody else, and he was the only one that had to save fuel. Cost him a chance to win that race. It happened again at the end of the second race in Iowa, which ended up causing a gigantic crash that took out Stingray Robb and a couple of others. And I'm going to show it to you from the IndyCar page. The only reason I'm going to show you this wreck is because everybody got out okay. When you see it, you will understand why. But I'm going to try to cue this up to show you what happened here. So just give me 1 second. All right, so we got that queued up. This is on the IndyCar NTT Data IndyCar Series YouTube channel. We're going to watch this together, and then I'm going to make some comments about it. As this was a little bit crazy. Check this out.
22nd on the grid, and Stingray Robb is upside down. Massive crash at the end of this race. Rossi, Ed Carpenter, and Kyle Kirkwood.
Heading into the back straight, all sorts of chaos. Thank goodness for the aero screen.
I think so.
But I think Kyle Kirkwood's pinned in there. The left rear of Ed Carpenter is in a very awkward position on the air hose for Kyle Kirkwood. He's moving in the cockpit, but he needs to chill here and wait for the safety team to help.
From where he's sitting, I don't think he can see that tire is right above his head. He can't look up. AMR safety team quickly on the scene. It's so hot. As soon as you stop moving.
So the NTT Data, NBC on the call for that. They have to do a much better job of their fuel strategy to avoid stuff from that happening. But thank God for the aero screen.
Yeah, I was just about to say, like, another, life saved by the aero shield.
I say this with no hyperbole. Kyle Kirkwood is dead today if that aero screen is not there. That is That was terrifying. Thankfully, everyone walked out of that okay. Stingray Rob took 106 G's on the flip that went through there. I'll try to queue up where they show a replay of what happened because it's a 5-minute video and I don't want to get us just stuck on there. But we're gonna watch this flip that happens here with. I'm gonna mute it here so I can talk over it. Racing, I preach about this every time there's a big wreck. The safety in our sport from 30 years ago till now. Every engineer that has had a hand in saving a driver's life should not buy a beer anywhere. As we take a look, watch this car as they come off turn 2. That is Stingray Rob, the car tumbling over, took 106 G's, was temporarily knocked out, and he walks away. This is on board with Alexander Rossi coming off turn number 2, runs out of fuel, and then away he goes. Our sport is so much safer than it's ever been. Death is still a constant specter in motorsports, but it does not claim as many far fewer drivers than it used to. And I thank all the engineers that have put into work to help do that, and to all the drivers that we lost beforehand. Your sacrifice was not in vain. I think I can say that. That was a scary one. I will admit that was definitely top 10 of scariest wrecks of the year.
Was it as scary as Monza 2021?
All right, 2021. Was that when Bottas and Russell kind of got into it?
No, that was Hamilton and Verstappen in turn 1.
Oh, yeah, that was a much lower speed.
Yeah, that was very low speed.
Yeah, that one just was more annoying than scary because it was a low speed incident.
But if that halo wasn't there, Lewis would have been hurting for sure, though.
He would have had a serious neck injury.
Yeah.
But I think because this one was at a higher speed, it really takes the cake.
All right.
Yeah. The other big part of the IndyCar race, unfortunately, was the fact that there wasn't a lot of passing this weekend. They did a repave on the inside line to try to make try to smooth out the bumps. And unfortunately, when you do a repave, the tires like that, and it becomes a one groove racetrack very quickly. It did not help because Firestone brought harder tires because of the high speeds. I think it isn't as much of a problem as folks are making it out to be. You bring some softer tires and things are going to be fine. But unfortunately, this week is just one of those races where you just shrug your shoulders and go, that was mid. But we move on from there to the streets of Toronto, one of the signature events in IndyCar /kart /IRL, all the series that have run here. The tight confines in Toronto always puts on a good show. And we go back to the road and street courses. This is where Ganassi has been strong. We've had 3 street courses this year. Ganassi's run 2 of them. So, guys, do you think we see Ganassi going 3 for 4 in the street course schedule?
I think so. They got a really strong combination, and I have a strong feeling they'll dominate in the street circuit scene.
Yeah, they have a strong possibility of grabbing another win here, and the driver that definitely needs it is Scott Dixon. He is losing touch in this championship battle. 322 points to his teammate, leading the way Alex Palou, 379. So about 57 points from Dixon to Palou. Will Power has 344 points, Pato Award 327 in between them. It isn't over for Scott Dixon to get number 7 this year. But if he has a bad weekend this week or up in Toronto, I think he's playing spoiler the rest of the season.
I think so too. It's just, sometimes it just takes that one big slip up, and next thing you know, everything's blown into, proportion. So I definitely think he has a good chance if he slips up.
Well, here's what I'll say. If it comes down to a fuel strategy race, Scott Dixon is your pick to win this one this weekend. But hey, we're going to take one last break. When we come back, we're going to get into some Formula One news and notes. The second half of the season is upon us. And can Red Bull hold on to their dominance of the sport? We'll talk about that inside of this break here on the Extra Mile on iSports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
It's IE Sports Radio. It is your direct feed for all that is sports. It is Philly Sports Talk with Cash and Chris every Tuesday night right here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. Philly Sports Talk with Cash and Chris is the most comprehensive view on Philadelphia sports exclusively right here on IE Sports Radio. You know what it is, your direct feed for all that is sports. Tuesday night, IE Sports Radio, Philly Sports Talk with Cash and Chris.
Hey sports fans, are you in the market for Florida sports or just keeping up with the latest in the Panhandle? Palm Tree Sports is a dedicated audio hub to all things sports in the Sunshine State. We cover current events, big news, heavily favored opinions all across the NFL, NBA, MLB, and so much more. So come check us out every Saturday evening at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. For a down south education on Florida sports and athletics, it's hosted by yours truly, Corey Pujols, and is powered by IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
And we're back here in Extra Mile IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. We are back to talk Formula One as we get ready to wrap up the show. Some news and notes this weekend, and we start with Red Bull bringing some track-specific upgrades to Hungary. Chris, tell us all about it.
Yeah, so I think we've kind of, at least those of us that, enjoy the technical side of things, and we've kind of talked about on this show about how we're getting to the point now where the cars are just getting so close in parity. Development, you're only getting fractions of a fraction of a second. And so now I think we're going to start seeing some more track-specific upgrades. And so specifically, Red Bull has they've brought a new engine cover, and it is going to be high downforce track specific. And I think that we'll probably see this start happening throughout a few of the other teams as well. The ones probably more towards the front of the field, realistically, where we're going to start seeing some variance between track types, just as they start looking at finding speed rather than, as a general at every track. But now we're going to start honing in on how to find more time on less tracks, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And so there were some rumors in the paddock back around preseason testing that Red Bull had, this big ace up their sleeve, and then we see it on Max's car at Hungary right now.
Is this ace up the sleeve going to help? Because there's been a lot of rumors starting to fly around. I mean, there's been rumors flying around that team all year, let's be honest. But especially now that Adrian Newey is going on, we're starting to hear some more conversation, I'll put it like that, about what's been going on with the development of this car. Apparently, he wasn't listened to when it comes to development of the RB20, which might describe some of the struggles they're having.
Yep.
But Red Bull got a big early season lead, but right now their issue is the other teams are catching up and their second car is functionally useless. How do they hold on to this advantage in the drivers? Or I think they're going to hold on to the drivers because Lando Norris and McLaren can't do strategy, but how do they hold on to the world teams title at this point? Because there is a chance they could win the drivers title and lose the constructors title if Sergio does not figure something out.
I was just about to say either Liam Lawson or Yuki Tsunoda. That's how they hold on to the constructors championship. And apparently, like, I'm just on Twitter right now, and Liam Lawson was within a few tenths of Max on his filming day at Silverstone. So we've also had some press from Yuki saying that he thinks that it would, quote, be weird, end quote, if he wasn't given a shot at Checo's seat if it comes available. I just think that they need to give Yuki a shot. That's just kind of where I'm at.
Yeah, I would agree.
Jen, what do you think? Should Sergio keep the spot, or is it time for him to head on to the free agency, head on to the transfer portal?
Sounds like it's time for him to move on out.
Yeah. I just don't understand. I've been trying to figure it out here since he got that contract extension. In a vacuum, it was a good move. And he's completely fallen off as a driver. Like, he just going this way, cliff.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny because when you listen to his interviews or like when you read his interviews, he's just like, I don't know why people are criticizing me so much.
That's literally, I'm reading his quote right now. I don't understand why there's so much talk about me and my future. Nothing is going to change these 2 weekends, even if I win a race or even if I finish last. I have a contract with the team, and I am going to fulfill it.
Hold on, Sergio.
Literally the top comment. Not sure about that one, Chief.
Yeah. Hold on. Oh, God, he was born in... We're the same age? We're born the same month. Oh, crap. I might have an answer for why people are talking about your future. As we head over to Formula1.com, I'm going to have to bring up the list again. This is Formula1.com. You see that April 21st? That's the last time you've had a podium. Your finishes after that were 4th, 8th. You didn't finish. You didn't finish again. 8th, 7th, 17th. Buddy, are you serious?
Max is scoring more points in 1 weekend than Checo's getting in 7.
You are single-handedly throwing the game, dude. There's a reason people are talking about you losing your seat.
And to be fair, it's not just Checo hate. We've done this plenty of times with Lance Stroll too. Like last year when Aston Martin was just killing it out of the gate, and we were saying Lance Stroll is holding that team back. They ended up deteriorating on their own later on, but you know, big time parity between teammates is not a good thing to have, especially when you're at the front of the field.
Yeah, you should not have this big of a disparity. It should not be this big of a gulf between teammates. It's not good, Sergio. Might lose your job. One guy that has lost his job is Kevin Magnussen. He's going to vacate his Haas seat at the conclusion of 2024. Probably come back to IndyCar. Maybe give NASCAR a try. Who knows? How do we look back on Kevin Magnussen's tenure at Haas? It's really hard to say that it was very successful, but the team was not successful. So it's hard to tell whether or not it was team or driver.
That's a tough one.
It is a really tough one. I want to say it's more so the team, because if you look back at Magnussen's career, he just kind of came into Formula One at a really, really bad time.
Mm-hmm.
And when I mean bad time, I mean he came here in 2014 when the status quo was flipped on its side.
Mm-hmm.
Red Bull wasn't the dominant team anymore. McLaren wasn't as good anymore.
That is an understatement.
2014? Just
24. Yeah.
Yeah, 2014. They weren't as good. They had Button and Magnussen, but compared to Mercedes, Williams, and Red Bull, it's not much they could have done. And then on top of that, Magnussen does get a podium, which kind of solidified his talent.
Mm-hmm.
But after that, they couldn't go nowhere. And then McLaren wanted to make more moves. They got Honda on board, and then Alonso got on board.
We know how that Honda move went.
Yeah, and unfortunately, Magnussen was just kind of strung along, picked up, and then kind of tossed to the side, unfortunately.
It is he will go down as one of the Formula One drivers of all time.
Yep, one of the Formula One drivers of all time. But hey, I get the number 20 back in the F1 game, so I'm happy. I'm happy.
Priorities.
Yeah, priorities, man. I was waiting for that number to come back since 2021.
Chris, what are your thoughts on Magnussen?
I would say that, I would say it's equally team as much as it is driver. It's not like Magnussen was, being out qualified, out finished or anything like that. I mean, whoever he's teamed up with, they're pretty consistently close together. So I would say that at minimum, he's getting out of the car what he should be getting out of the car. And he's had some fantastic drives too. They don't necessarily get as much attention, but he's definitely had some fantastic races over his career.
So does this mean like he's done with Formula One? Like he's officially done?
Well, he just doesn't have a ride at this point.
I think Alpine is still open, and I think Williams and Sauber, unless somebody decides to take that seat.
Yeah.
Alpine, Sauber, and what was the other one? There's another one. Technically Mercedes, but we know how that's going to go.
Who knows with Mercedes at this point? Speaking of that Williams seat, Carlos Sainz seat watch. Chris, give us the update.
So from what I've seen on Twitter, and this is, obviously the cesspool of the internet, Williams may have pulled the offer, or at least it's trending that way. And Red Bull is apparently potentially back on the table. So
interesting.
I really don't get what's going on with Sainz, to be honest with you. I don't know. It seems, I don't know. It just almost feels like Lando, how he kind of played, not necessarily played, but he implied that, he had an offer from Red Bull, which he might have actually had probably. And he grabbed himself, a monster contract out of McLaren. And so who knows what's going on with Carlos at this point. It seemed like Williams was a done deal at one point, but now, I don't know. It seems like Mercedes has essentially pulled the offer.
In favor of Antonelli still, baby, you think?
Yeah, I think he's definitely the preferred. But then, I don't know.
I don't know about, getting Kimi Antonelli in, like, right out of F2.
But they essentially changed the rule for him.
I know, but it's just really, like, I don't know. I feel like just putting him into a front running seat just immediately, or I don't know. Maybe Kimi Antonelli is like the second coming of Lewis Hamilton. I don't know, but
well, they would change that rule, but they wouldn't change it for Colton Herta.
No,
make it make sense. So,
but I'm just like, I don't know if he's gonna. I don't know if he's gonna come in and challenge for the world championship right off the bat, but I just feel like if I was in Mercedes' shoes, I would be bringing Carlos Sainz's home, because I think Russell and Sainz will be a pretty decent combination. Or it might be chaotic because you got two very hungry drivers for wins, so I'm not too sure.
Yeah, I don't think they're too sure.
I don't think Carlos is too sure about what he wants to do in 2025.
He might be done with the sport for all we know.
I don't know. I've stopped trying to figure it out. So the Goodwood Festival of Speed wrapped up on Sunday, a great specialty event showing all things motorsports. And Richard and Kyle Petty stole the show. Chris, what were they up to?
Well, if you, I don't know if you paid any attention to it. I think I retweeted it a little bit, but they ran actually a couple different cars. They ran sorry, I'm trying to get over here. I just had it up too. So they had run Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
Trying to go to Kyle's Facebook now or Twitter now. So they ran the very famous Superbird. They ran that Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, but also, so they kind of did a joint run with Kyle and Richard, and so Richard was in the Beast of Turin, which for anybody who doesn't know what that is, it's like over 100-year-old car. It's massive for the time period. It set speed record. It's just it's literally the Beast of Turin. And then so Richard was in that, and then Kyle was in the Superbird, and they kind of did a joint pass together, and they had the Superbird out in one of Kyle's cars there too, kind of on display, and they were definitely getting a lot of love there. Kyle has some really great photos on his Twitter if anybody is interested in seeing. They did a pretty good job like documenting it. They got some video and stuff like that. So it was really cool to see the American guys get some love over in England and a little bit of exposure for NASCAR too. So it seemed like they were rather popular. So it was good for us.
And it's really wonderful to see that overseas we're received very warmly. If you ask me, overseas, I think in some categories, in some ways.
Sometimes it depends on where you are. Yeah. I've got a story about Amsterdam that would make you.
You went to Amsterdam?
You'd have to change your shorts. So,
yeah, I've been to Max?
I've been to Europe a couple times.
Oh, did you meet Max?
I did not. No.
Oh, that's sad.
Wait,
I don't think Max lives in the Netherlands. Yeah. I think he lives in Monaco.
All of them live in Monaco for the tax break, apparently.
So here's a
really
photo.
Funny.
So you can see that they're definitely getting some love from the British crowd over there.
Yeah, definitely. And it's like I said, it's nice to see.
Yeah. So and Richard and Kyle, both their Twitters, they've got a lot of photos and stuff like that from the weekend, and yeah, it was just cool to see them get a lot of love over there.
Yep. And one thing before we get ready to wrap up, apparently there was a pretty big storm at Chicago. So not Chicago, in Hungary this weekend. And,
Is this the Alpine Garage?
Wow.
yeah. Pretty big rainstorm came through on the weekend, so hopefully everything is okay, and hopefully it'll be a lot calmer during this weekend. But hey, it is time to get ready to throw the checkered flag for this episode of The Extra Mile. Hey, Jen, Chris, Michael, thank you so much for joining me this weekend. Thank you all so much for watching. Enjoy the racing this weekend, and we will be back next week at Next Green Flag. Good night, everybody.